and raw, just like you like it.
He's corrupt, he's inexperienced, and he lies.
Broadcasting from a broom closet in the Arizona Lotus Studios, it's Beef Vegan Presents.
Yo, welcome to the podcast, broadcast live. Good morning, everybody. Keep those comments coming. I'll throw it out there. We got a very special podcast broadcast for you today. You know, we have all eyes on Tucson Comic Con this weekend. And in studio, got a very special guest who will be talking about his feature films, Jason Rutherford. Or is it Rutherford? Rutherford, yeah, excellent. Get that microphone right in front of your face there, Jason. He is an independent filmmaker. He's going to be actually screening one of his projects, SINEMA. Is it SINEMA? Yeah, look at that. I know the answers, and I second guess myself. SINEMA at the Tucson Comic Con this Sunday at 11 a.m. And Jason has been, a cinematographer and a filmmaker here for a few years. Got a couple projects under his belt, and you shoot here locally as well, right?
Yes, I'm shooting my current movie, Room 666 here.
Yeah, so in the horror film genre, which is fantastic. In fact, actually, I'm going to pull up the trailer for SINEMA, which right off the bat, I'm like, your star in SINEMA is gorgeous, right? She has this, you're just like, oh, wow. Would you pay $10 million for her? What's her name?
I gotta tell you this, it's actually funny, and it plays into the art of exploitation, and actually was the first review when we sold the Blu-ray the other day on Amazon. This guy went, hey, that girl's not in the movie, and she's not. So it's funny that you led with that, because I think that girl's AI.
Oh, of course.
And
of course. I fall in love with AI like every other day, dude. You know, that's something that we have to figure out, like how not to be so easily deceived as it gets more difficult to be able to tell the difference. Let me pull up a picture of her, because she is not real, but she's real in my dreams. Let's see. Here's the poster for SINEMA. And I was like, oh, she's a Tucson local? I'm like, no, too good to be true there. But that's fine. But this is a great poster here for SINEMA. And so, yeah, she's not in it, right?
No, she's not. If we have the previous version of SINEMA is called Shh, and if you go to the IMDb of Shh with 4 H's, you'll see the original poster, which is very extreme. It's got lesbians, it's got decapitations and stuff. So
nice.
Having that on image on Amazon Prime, they didn't like that. So we had to modify it, and with this title change and art change, we're hoping to sort of class it up a little bit and maybe get some more viewers. It looks more like a Blumhouse thing or something like that.
Absolutely. No, it's an awesome looking poster.
Yeah.
And, I've always been a fan of the horror genre.
Oh, yeah. I was a little kid and seeing something like Galaxy of Terror, which I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I haven't.
It's got like a giant earthworm raping a woman. I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah, you can say that on the podcast.
But not that I'm into that, but as a little kid, I was like, what the heck is that?
Right.
And just sort of this extreme taboo cinema, and, seeing the box cover of something like Zombie with the maggots coming out of the eyes and stuff, I just fell in love and started Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th and just everything. I love all kinds of films, but I don't know. This particular genre is just fun.
Well, that's how it is for people who, dive deep into this genre. It is a passion of theirs, fully. They immerse themselves in, this type of, this art. And, it's crazy, too, because you never really see people who dive that deep into the horror genre that really actually go outside of that. They focus almost like a lifetime's worth of work to, perfect their vision in that genre.
Yeah, but I like it when, look at Stephen King jumping out and doing Shawshank or Stand By Me, or Cronenberg doing other things. It just gets stale doing the same thing over and over again. I could do it over and over again for sure, and I'm probably going to.
Right.
I just can't help myself. But I would like to do some normal stuff. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I know. How did you get started? Were you doing like short films or what got you down the path of cinematography and starting to film things?
I just was going to film school, that old chestnut.
Okay. Where'd you go to film school?
I went to like 2 of them. One was the Watkins College of Art and Design, which is no longer there.
Right.
It was a horrible place, but made some good friends, and in Nashville, Tennessee. And the other one was Vancouver, British Columbia, this is funny because my wife left me in Nashville. I hated this film school, and I just wanted a new film school, and I was reading High Times magazine, of all things. And it was talking about the Vancouver, BC bud, and the marijuana. It was decriminalized there. And
way before a lot of other places.
It had all these like shops you could just go into, and I was like, well, that sounds cool. And then I saw Vancouver Film School was like right across the street on the pot block, and I was like, wow, sign me up.
Yeah.
It's a horrible reason to choose anything.
No, that's a fantastic reason. You're like, I want to make films and, learn about making films and also get creative while getting stoned.
Yeah.
And it's like the best of both worlds. In fact, I'm sure a lot of great films and television shows all originated from that combination of, pot shop and film school all in the same block.
There you go. So that was my inspiration, and I didn't graduate that film school either. It was 2 film schools.
Well, the weed was too strong across the street.
It was too strong, and I went, you got to go back to L.A. And and then I went back to L.A. and I did make a movie before I went to film school called The Bastard Son. It was a documentary on homeless life in Los Angeles. It was pretty cool. I had some cool like punk rock bands in there and stuff, and I think that helped me get into film school. But after I came to L.A. and went to the New Beverly Cinema, which is now owned by Quentin Tarantino. Before it wasn't. He took it over.
Yeah.
Kind of saved it, which is a little admirable.
Yeah.
And he, and before he took it over, they would show these Grindhouse Film Festival nights and double features and stuff. And for 3 years, I filmed all the Q&As and stuff. A bunch of old men talking about how they got screwed over by the distributors, and now they're sort of gaining a second life. People digging their films. Oh, they were once thinking they were crap, and now they're cool. People like Tarantino, Rodriguez, and all kinds of people.
Films that are kind of like ahead of their time in a way.
Yeah. And what's cool about them too is that they're so politically incorrect.
Yeah.
And so it was great to film that, and then film all the guys from the Grindhouse era, and at least 35, maybe 40 have died that are in my documentary since then.
Nice.
17 years to put this monstrosity together. We're going to show a piece of it in L.A. Next week at the Los Feliz Theater, and we won Best Documentary a couple months ago at the LAIFS Film Festival. So that was great.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think we're jumping around a little bit, but because, we'll talk more about that documentary, because I do love that concept, because essentially all those Q&As that you were able to film and then piece together and be able to tell a story about that, which was basically a time and a genre, and encapsulate that told by the people who were there who created that genre. Now let's go back to this documentary that kind of got you into film school in LA about homeless people. Obviously homelessness continues to be like a rampant issue, right? It's huge. And there is no answer for it, but it's got to be kind of a nerve-wracking situation to immerse yourself into that culture as well, to approach people on the street, to ask them to share their story. I'm sure, like, initially when you went in, like, how difficult was it to start getting people to talk, and then was it dangerous at all?
It wasn't so much dangerous. We found a new angle on the homeless documentary, which was we saw this homeless guy, like reciting Shakespeare, and we're like, that's really unique. And a lot of people just assume,
he's crazy or something.
Yeah, homeless people are culturalists or whatever. So we went with that angle. The movie's called The Bastard Son, S-U-N.
Bastard Son.
And we just wanted to go around and ask people, sort of like what they do during the day. Do they play sports? Like the questions you wouldn't normally ask them.
Right.
And stuff like, how did you get here and stuff. And a lot of them.
How many times was the answer like, I do heroin during the day, and then, maybe I look for money so I could do more hair. I look for money at night to do more heroin during the day the next day.
There wasn't too much drug talk, except that there was more talk about. And
what year was this?
This was like 1996, so it was quite a while ago.
Right.
But there was more talk, since it was back then, about a lot of these guys were like Vietnam veterans that were waiting for their connected disability stuff, and like they got Agent Orange and stuff like that in Vietnam, and they were still waiting for their the government money, which is horrible that they weren't getting it. And one guy who looked like Santa Claus, and he had like testicular cancer and all these guys. So it was more of that. There's one guy that was a Vietnam veteran who had a house, and because of the shell shock or he couldn't be indoors and stuff because the paranoia or whatever, PTSD, I guess.
Yeah.
And so he lived in MacArthur Park, where he could see anybody coming at him and stuff. And that dude was really smart. He was reading a Robert Ludlum book, Masters of the Game, and but I could tell he was like, he definitely had like a coke problem or whatever.
Yeah, he was definitely high a little bit.
Yeah, but it was a result of the war and stuff. So that was a real bummer. But we tried to make the movie as sort of lighthearted as possible with the punk rock and just people. There's even a segment in the movie where a homeless couple start singing a version of "If I Was a Rich Man." But do you have parts of Bastard Son on YouTube? No, I don't. The only reason I don't is like music rights. There might be some music rights in there, and I co-directed with another gentleman. So I've been thinking about just throwing it up there because it is good. It's only like 40 minutes long. It was shot on film. Yeah. That's. I mean, honestly, like everything is new for somebody who's seeing it for the first time. Yeah. And if you put it together, and now we have this digital age to kind of throw it out there. I think there is ways around licensing, but those ways around licensing for music means those are also ways that you're not going to get paid off of it. But you're not going to get paid off of it just sitting in your hard drive either. I know. It's a lot of Boston punk rock that I'm not really, they're really good groups. I'm not, and we almost got like Dropkick Murphys. Yeah. But we didn't, but. Yeah, no, that sounds fascinating. Yeah. And it's also like a timeless tale because unfortunately, the problem itself hasn't been solved, and there's a new generation with a new war that they're suffering those same problems for. All over again. Let's get on the air to do a tease. Rock 102.1 KFMA. Welcome back to Be Vegan Presents. That was new music. We're going to double it up with new music here live on the podcast broadcast. What you just heard was If It Doesn't Hurt by Nothing More, featuring David Draymond of Disturbed. In studio, got a very special guest who is going to be showcasing his feature film at Tucson Comic Con this Sunday at 11 a.m. The film is called SINEMA. Jason Rutherford, director, writer of SINEMA, in studio on the podcast broadcast with us. And good morning, Jason. Morning, buddy.
We're going to be talking about all this great work that he's been putting together, how you could participate and watch SINEMA at the Tucson Comic Con when you're there. So many things to do this weekend at the TCC. Watching movies, just one of them. So we're also going to check out some trailers that he put together of his feature films, specializing in the horror genre. So you can join us, youtube.com/BeFegan, or keep it right here because we'll have more with Jason after new music from Daughtry. This song is called Pieces on Rock 102.1 KFMA. Clear. All right, so that was on the FM side. And now we're back on the stream. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. I impress myself sometimes, Jason.
I couldn't do it.
You could. Yeah, honestly, you couldn't do it like smooth on the first try. But after a week, you're like, yeah, I got this down. It's really not that difficult. All right, let's play now. The SINEMA trailer shows boobs.
I forgot where.
Let's say no.
Okay.
And if there's boobs, then I'll flash. I'll do my little censor thing.
It's hard to tell what has boobs, what doesn't.
Yeah, it's great though. You know what? And you're a man after my heart. Obviously, can it even be considered like a true horror film in that genre if it doesn't feature boobs at least once?
Well, we were trying to hit all the marks. So,
yeah. There is like a formula, is there not? And I think, breast, gratuitous nudity has always been kind of like a part of that genre to a certain extent. It makes it fun. And
do you know who Russ Meyer is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Russ Meyer, Russ Meyer's girlfriend or wife, and one of his stars, Kit Natividad, is in SINEMA, and so we, she doesn't show her boobs.
Yeah.
But other girls do. And she passed away, but she's, one of the legendary. And I don't know if you remember Airplane 2. Everybody's going crazy, and for 2 seconds you see some boobs in a shirt go.
Yeah.
Like,
that was her.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
She's also in a movie called The Wildlife with Chris Penn, which is sort of a pseudo sequel of Fast Times at Ridgemont High. If you've never seen The Wildlife with Chris Penn, it kicks
Really?
And Kitten, they go to a strip bar, and Kitten's like the lady in the giant champagne glass.
It's a sequel to Fast Times. Was it written by Cameron Crowe?
It was. It was a pseudo. They call it a pseudo sequel, whatever the hell that means.
Right.
Maybe the same universe, perhaps.
Yeah.
And it's the only film ever made. Eddie Van Halen's only film score.
Okay. Well, that's kind of a big deal too.
Yeah,
and of
it's
course,
really
Chris Penn
cool.
at the time.
It's got the dude from Wyatt from Weird Science and Chris Penn and Eric Stoltz and Leah Thompson before Some Kind of Wonderful, and it's fun, and it's got a Vietnam thread in it too.
Okay, what was the name of that again?
The Wildlife.
The Wildlife. Okay. So I'm gonna look it up. Do you know where you could find that?
I have a bootleg of it, actually signed by Cameron and Eric Stoltz and a bunch of people. And
do you know the backstory of Fast Time at Ridgemont High, as far as how Cameron Crowe came up with the concept and the script? He was writing for the Rolling Stone, and then he went to high school to do some kind of piece for the Rolling Stone. Came across these characters that he actually immortalized in the film. And so that was basically just inspired by his experience. And this was essentially his high school experience, because just like they've showed in Almost Famous, he kind of like fast tracked his, youth in a way. He kind of got into a career before he was even done with school, just because he was so passionate about it, and started freelancing for Rolling Stone and making good enough money and going everywhere. So that's what it was. So I guess, the Wildlife, kind of the same thing, just more stories and tales and inspiration based off him immersing himself in. And it's like kind of culture and friend group of a school that he didn't even belong to.
it's sort of like after college. It's sort of like what Cameron or what's the guy's name? Freaks and Geeks.
Oh yeah, you're talking Judd Apatow.
Yeah, Judd Apatow did Freaks and Geeks, and then he did I think it was called Undeclared after.
Yeah.
Which is the college, and this Wildlife's sort of like we're out of college now. What do we like? Eric Stoltz works at a donut shop, and Chris Penn just works at a bowling alley.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't go to college. You know what I mean? They're just and
check out.
Ian, I don't know, the kid from Weird Science. He's the only high school. Okay,
nice. Rock 102.1 KF, man. Welcome back to Beef Vegan Presents. We're live here on the podcast broadcast talking movies with independent filmmaker Jason Rutherford, who specializes in the horror genre and is featuring a special screening at the Tucson Comic Con this Sunday at 11 a.m. And 11 a.m. to watch a horror film, right? Like scare you and then start the rest of your day. Now, you've been in the horror genre game for how many years now?
That's a good question. Let's say 10.
Yeah, about 10?
No, 17, because that's when I started my documentary. 17 years.
And you started you started as a documentary filmmaker, and now you're kind of pivoting here, and you shoot here locally, right, for your independent films.
For my latest movie, Room 666, we were shooting in hotels and all over. And
what's some hotels like? Do you kind of scout locations based off of?
I don't want to tell you because we're not even supposed to be filming in there.
Okay, nice. But there are hotels in town that are obviously been around a while that are kind of like perfect settings for kind of like a scary feature film.
Yeah, but they charge money and I'm cheap. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, you are independent, right? So to put together like a film, and it's a feature-length film, right? So Room 666. Which I think we're going to share a trailer for here in a little bit.
I don't have the trailer for this one, sorry.
Oh, we got the poster. That's okay. But how long will the feature run? What's the run time on that?
I'm trying to get to about 90 minutes. Honestly, my buddy Vazi, who shot SINEMA, and he's from India, and he came down to hang out, and he brought his camera, and I'm like, let's shoot a movie.
Nice.
And it just sort of erupted into a feature film.
Yeah, now, so for people out there, because I know I have listeners that are, always probably passionate about the same thing or want to create like that, to put together, let's say, SINEMA, which is going to be the movie that's being screened this Sunday at the Tucson Comic Con. What is basically the budget that you end up having to spend to create this? Because obviously, when you're an independent filmmaker, you got to stretch a dollar. You got to get creative. You got to do some guerrilla shoots, things like that. And you're not alone. A lot of great films have been made that way, especially when it's the underground. So, like, what are we looking at as far as costs to kind of put together something like this?
That's a good question. I will say, SINEMA probably we've at least put $20,000 into that one in terms of film That's nothing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
My new one, maybe $200. It's a totally different animal.
Okay, yeah, that's more of a gorilla style.
Yeah, SINEMA. I mean, we got Joe Pilato, who was in Day of the Dead, George Romero's Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
He was the highest paid actor in the movie. We gave him $600 because he was such a legend.
Yeah.
Austin Stoker.
Is that a day of shooting? Couple days of shooting?
1 day.
1 day, yeah.
Couple hours, 4 or 5. He was going to play. He plays a character named Red Harling, who's a grindhouse filmmaker, hanging out by the pool. It's like one scene, $600. But we knew that's one of the exploitable elements. You know, in addition to having breasts in your movie, it's good to have a genre star or cameos.
Yeah. Let's break that down. What are the top 5 things that every independent horror film need to, tackle in their film, right? Because we talked about gratuitous nudity being such a major part of the genre, right? Horror films in general, going way back, you're talking Friday the 13th, like Nightmare on Elm Street, whatever. You name a popular horror franchise, the beginning, they're always going to check off that box. One and done. What are some other, elements that every classic horror film needs to have?
Obviously, boobs, blood.
Yep, blood.
Gore. But one of the things is the poster. The poster's so important.
Yeah.
Hence, the poster we were talking about with the girl that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That gets them in the door. It's like a carnival barker. That's the element of exploitation is, get in or step right up, see the most beautiful girl in the woman, and then you pay and you get inside and she's ugly.
Absolutely. With horror films, that's a genre, or like the posters for horror films is a genre in itself. It is an art and an element in itself. And I know that a lot of people even just like to collect those posters. And they're fantastic. So you'll be able to see the poster for SINEMA on Amazon Prime. They could rent that movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's under the banner. It's the more graphic poster that has the lesbian vampires, a chick being her head cut off. It just like we literally made the poster for those reasons to make it shocking, but this was before streaming existed.
Right.
So we didn't know that the poster was going to be in this little box, and we couldn't have lesbian vampires and decapitations there. So we had to sort of make our own little and it looks crappy, hence why you're changing the title and have this new art.
Yeah, well, I love it. And you had me on lesbian vampires. So we're going to continue the conversation on the podcast broadcast where we're going to watch the trailer for SINEMA. You can join us, youtube.com/BeFegan. Coming up, we got more new movie news, and we'll be, talking with Jason Rutherford, the filmmaker of SINEMA here. So stick around. We got music on the way from Nirvana. It's Rock 102.1 KFMA. Yeah, let's play this trailer and see what kind of... lesbian vampires.
We've done so many versions of stuff. Me and my editor, we don't know which way is up sometimes.
I get it, and then a lot of times, during the editing process, right? Like sometimes you just have to just keep going and just kind of re-envisioning with the pieces moving around. It's like a puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Let's check out the trailer here for SINEMA. And if there's any boobs that ends up flashing on screen, I'll do a quick little boop right there. So you'll only see a boob for a second, if that. All right, let's check it out.
Let's all go to
Turn your phone off.
Let's all go to the
Fucking cunt.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Little booby.
Yeah, barely. That's barely any boob. You know, honestly, I think the gore would get me more banned on YouTube than anything else.
That's true. We got a baby being ripped out of a stomach, you know.
Yeah, but that's part of the genre.
I'm surprised it's on Amazon Prime. I mean, really, it's pretty.
Well, Amazon right now, they want all the content. So, and if people are willing to pay for it, they're like, yeah, we'll take that money. We'll take our cut. So, you know, that's great. And so with SINEMA, you've been featuring that around other places, other little film fests and stuff?
Yeah, we're screening it next Saturday, September 7th at the Los Feliz Theater, part of the American Cinematheque Friend of the Fest, and at 7 p.m. along with a segment of Masters of the Grind with some actors from the movie and stuff. So that'll be fun.
When did you shoot this movie? Because it was originally called Shush.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good question too. It's probably been like maybe 10 years or something like that.
Okay, well, it's crazy because the cinematography that you have for that has a very vintage appeal, right? It looks like it's from an era, a time where kind of like this mid-70s, like early 80s kind of thing, right? Where the slasher films and everything were almost like, you know, they were first like bubbling up to the mainstream, right?
Yeah, we definitely had my buddy Vazir Data Boy. He's great, and we were going for that, but we were also trying to go for the 80s flashback kind of thing. And it's so funny that it's so long ago that a lot of the it is very retro and like a time capsule, because there's a place called Eddie Brand Saturday Matinee, which is a really cool video store that no longer, it's like a COVID just wiped it out.
Yeah.
But we shot there, and that's no longer. And there's a place called Hollywood Book and Poster Company, which is the best place to get movie posters and stuff, and that's no longer there as well. So it's cool that we got a lot of people in the movie that are no longer here in a lot of places. So it's really a different LA, and much like my homeless documentary is a different LA than the current LA. It's LA really just it changes so much.
Oh, I'm sure, right? So, and have you lived out in LA for years?
Yeah, I'm a fifth generation Californian. I was born in LA, and I had to leave there because financially I couldn't live there.
Yeah. It just everything started getting priced out. And when did you start seeing that change?
I don't know, like, you know, always.
Yeah.
You know, I know, but I left like 7 years ago.
Right.
And I go back and forth, and I'm a caregiver too, because, you know, this doesn't obviously pay the bills.
Yeah, you know, multiple hustles for sure. You know, which many artists do. You know,
but at least my job understands that. You know, you're the filmmaker. You go back and, you know, so
right.
Thank God for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Oh, we're getting. It's like I just got a message here. Let's play another trailer here because I have. Masters of the Grind.
Yeah, Masters of the Grind. That's our big baby. That, you know, 17 years in the making. Just won Best Documentary. We just got a 9 out of 10 on Horror Buzz.
Yeah, this is the big deal. This is the one where we're talking about, you know, all the interviews, all the Q&As from being at the legendary Beverly House and seeing all those screenings as, you know, a fan of the filmmakers. And I mean, what great foresight to be like, you know, to document this, right? Record it and then be able to kind of retell their stories in their own words. You know, like, so did you have this idea almost immediately going into it? Or was this after a while you went through a few of the Q&As where you're like, you know, actually this could be?
I was thinking like, man, because this is before cell phone. I'm like, somebody should be filming these Q&As. This is really important, the stories these guys are telling.
Yeah.
And the last guy, his name was Lawrence Foldis. He blew me away. It was like he was just like a game show host slash talk show host or whatever, or, you know, there was so much energy in this dude. And then luckily I saw him at like Fangoria Festival like 2 days later, and I mean, it was on my mind, but then I saw him there, and I'm like, hey man, could I get your number and maybe do this documentary? And then it started there, and another guy, and then I went to New York and filmed a gentleman named Joel M. Reed, who made one of the greatest grindhouse movies I've ever made, Blood Sucking Freaks. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
I have not.
Boy,
yeah.
But you're in for a ride, and then from there, it just kept going and going and going until I had, you know, interviewed like over 80, 90, 100 people, and hours and hours and hours of Q&As, but also regular interviews and just everything. And some of these guys have become my mentors and friends, and it's great. They're really cool dudes that basically the distributors took all their money. They didn't make a dime off any of their money, and they took their movies too. And so a lot of these guys, they're like, I don't have my movies.
This is a story that's similar to the music industry.
Oh, it's very similar to the music industry. But I think even worse in some regards, because you could always take your music with you, so to speak. These guys, they're like, I don't know where my movies are. And some people, I just saw your movie. Where?
Right.
On a bootleg VHS at Eddie Brandt's. Really? I didn't, and about them like getting their rights back.
Yeah.
And which isn't easy to do. Yeah, so
that's part of the story in this documentary is talking about essentially being kind of victimized by the industry, their fight to basically reclaim their art, their creation, their baby.
Yeah, my friend Frederick Friedel made 2 movies, and the distributor ripped off both movies. He never got a dime for any of the movies. One's called Kidnapped Co-Ed, and the other one, blanking out right now. It'll come to me. And he saw the wife of the distributor like in a Rolls Royce, and she said, "Come, follow me up to my house." And he went up to the house in like Laurel Canyon or something. And Axe is the name of the other movie, Axe.
Okay.
And this dude just said, "Hey, Fred, check out my mansion. Your movies bought me this."
Oh.
And that's it. This Fred never got a dime, and this son of a bitch. And he says in my documentary, there are nights that I just dreamt of going over to his house with a baseball bat and,
I'm sure.
and taking him out.
That's so weird too. It's like, you want to rip off a guy who imagined this shit? like the stuff that comes out of his mind is like what he could do to you in a way. There's definitely a fantasy of sorts, obviously, especially for someone who gets slighted. Like, you slighted me so hard, and then I want to recreate this in real life with your fucking head, dude.
I can totally relate. My first movie, which was called Night Terrors. It'll probably never be released. It was basically supposed to be like a tax write-off, so it really had no intention of being even made. And that bastard producer there, like, I mean, I wanted to just punch him in the face. I mean, It was just insanity. And I got fired from my own movie, and this dude made my friend fire me, who I got the job on this movie. It was just, what a mess.
Wow.
And it was my first experience right off the bat.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Yeah, welcome to Hollywood. But these are old men preying on, usually like Fred and these young grindhouse guys were young dudes.
Yeah.
That you just want to make a movie. And it was harder and easier back then to make a movie. It's weird.
I'm sure. Fascinating, too, because I never expected that, because it's obviously a tale that I associate with, the music industry, right? But then I didn't even think about independent film makers. Same thing. It's still arts. It's still the arts and how that works. And
yeah, it's one of those things where you're making exploitation films, but the artist is being exploited as well simultaneously.
That's kind of meta.
It's fucked up.
It is fucked up. Well, let's see here. Let's watch this documentary real quick. This trailer for Masters of the Grind. All these tales from the artists that lived it. So I'll pull it up right now.
Movies and money are a marriage made in hell.
It was a shifting of the power. And the studios were dropping everything. When the studios didn't know what to do, that's why we got the shot at it.
Low-budget people used to grind out low-budget movies.
Grindhouse is the butthole of cinema. You can't do without it.
In those days, we would come up with a title and an idea, and we would have a booking date in the theater before we started working on the script.
Switchblade Sisters.
I want you to do a picture, and I want you to go for the jugular.
Because when we did these, it was before VCRs, and we really thought they were just going to disappear.
What they really were doing is exploiting certain commercial elements.
For what it is, I mean, it's not Shakespeare. We knew we weren't doing Shakespeare.
Tons of crap and shit and snot and vomit, but it has a story.
Grindhouse means real independence.
I just knew that this is what I wanted to be a part of.
There were people perceptive enough to say, wait, there's a whole audience that is now able to go to the movies on their own. And the fact that we were able to make films aimed at that audience gave us entry into a business that would have been otherwise closed to us.
And I always said to Dean, listen, if you can get it in focus and light it in 15 minutes, let's shoot it. Because that's what we had to do.
And I'm not saying we were smart enough and we made a great movie. I'm saying we probably weren't smart enough and didn't know how to make a great movie, but there was nothing going to stop us from making our movie.
The real horror in a horror movie is happening on this side of the camera, not on that side.
You know, low-budget films were a crazy business, and the movies were crazy, and the people who worked on them were crazy, and the people who distributed them were even more crazy. Once they started getting the receipts from Blackula, I mean, they had money came in, none of which I saw.
You did films like that because you thought, I'll have a piece of film that I can show to somebody what I can do. And then you never get a piece of the film.
Now, I've also anticipated that we're going to get screwed by the distributors. We now know that. I mean, that's another stage in production. People think, oh, it's over in post-production, then distribution. No, there's one more phase, litigation.
All of those, grindhouse films were a great learning experience for anybody who paid attention.
That gentleman,
Go ahead.
is Dean Cundy, one of the greatest cinematographers of all time. He shot Book of Boba Fett. Got nominated for Apollo 13. Shot Roger Rabbit, Back to the Future 1, 2, 3.
All the massive, yeah.
All of it. He's huge, and he started titties and gore.
Oh, really? That's crazy. And it moved on to Disney.
Yeah.
That's usually the path, right? You start off with titties and gore, and you ease your way into the mainstream.
Yeah. That's what James Gunn did, by the way. His first film was called Romeo and Juliet. Disgusting. Penises. I mean, you name it. Just craziness.
Yeah.
And then, boop, Dawn of the Dead, Scooby-Doo. Now he's the biggest filmmaker in the world.
One of my favorite James Gunn films is equally as gory, but still in the superhero genre, and that's Super.
Love it.
Yeah, it is a fantastic film. I was one of those kids growing up who always wanted to work in a video rental store, and I did eventually. It took me 6 months of calling the manager like every day, asking if they got my application. And then when I finally got sat down by this manager, he's like, "How many times do you think you called me for this job?" And I was like, "Hopefully enough times to get the job, right?" Welcome back. It's Rock 102.1 KFMA. But then I did get the job at the video store. And, obviously the perks of that is that you have these unlimited movies that you can be able to watch. So definitely, kindred spirit here. I'm here with director Jason Rutherford, who is the writer-director for SINEMA, which is going to be a feature film that is going to be showcased at the Tucson Comic Con this Sunday at 11 a.m. So if you're at the Tucson Comic Con, you can go screen this film for free. It's one of the many features that Tucson Comic Con is going to be having this weekend, this Labor Day weekend. 3 days, everyone comes out for that. So I'm very excited about Tucson Comic Con this year. Now, real quick, while we've been talking about grindhouse movies and horror films in general, I'm going to give you the top 5 grindhouse movies of all time. And I'm going to say it like this. Now, of course, you could disagree, being an expert of the genre. But this is based off of reviews and box office. Okay, so the combination of the two. Now, there's some legendary films in here, so let's go right into it. So we'll go from 5 to 1. Coming in at number 5 of the top 5 grindhouse movies of all time, The Last House on the Left, all right, which was directed by the legendary Wes Craven. Was this one of the first films that Wes Craven actually produced and made?
Oh yeah, it's his first. It's also Sean Cunningham, who from the Friday the 13th saga produced it.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's Fred Lincoln, who's one of the rapists in the movie. He's in Masters of the Grind. David Hess, the lead star. I don't know if I should tell. So
we are on the FM side, so yeah.
He came out to a screening of another great movie that he's in called House of the Edge of the Park, which is a great home invasion movie.
Okay.
And just as good as Last House on the Left. He actually has a third movie called Hitchhike, which is a great hitchhiker movie. Like, that's his trilogy. But he came out to this screening, and this girl, he sat down in some gum, and he got some gum on his butt, and this girl was wiping his butt, and my camera person at the time decided to film that. And I have it on film. He freaked out and almost killed that guy, and was like, because he didn't want his wife to see, this girl wiping gum. It was totally innocent, and I freaked out, and I was like, oh my god, this Krug from Last House on the Left wants to kill me. And then luckily 2 days later, he's like, I'm sorry, I just freaked out. I just got a wife and don't want that. But it was cool. So I have a personal. But yeah, Last House on the Left. Awesome. It's awesome. A lot of people. A lot of younger people totally dismiss it and think it's way too politically incorrect. It is a movie. Let's just say it is a movie about rape.
Yeah, well, it came out in 1972, so it's a controversial grindhouse classic, but it holds a 63% of Rotten Tomatoes.
That's bullshit.
Well, we're on the air.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. You don't think you think it should be rated higher?
I do. That's what I'm talking about. I think the people that are rating it are looking through it through a modern lens, and they need to look at it through a historical lens.
Yeah.
And it's a movie. Remember, this is the movie whose advertising campaign, it's only a movie. It's only a movie.
Yeah.
It's only, so it is, and it's a crazy movie too, because it does have, like, David Hess did the music too, and there's a thing called the ice cream song. The girls are going to get ice cream, and they have this playful, fun little ice cream song and stuff. And those elements are all to, like, make you, like, feel happy, and then just go right into the madness. But
all right, well, we're going too deep down that one,
sorry.
so let's go on to the next one.
It's a masterpiece.
Yes, it is. Oh yeah, I was like, a little bit about it.
They made a remake too.
Yes. What was the remake? The same name?
It was same name, and
what year did that come out?
About like 10 years ago. It was pretty good.
Okay.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah, so this was made on a budget of around $87,000. It grossed approximately $3 million and had a significant success, which is significant success for a grindhouse film, right? The brutal and disturbing film helped establish Wes Craven as a key figure in horror, setting the stage for his later success, is what it says there. All right, coming in number 4, top 5 grindhouse movies of all time. Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, directed by the legendary Russ Meyer. Wasn't Russ Meyer the director of the 50-Foot Woman? Or no? Oh no, he was. But there was a film made about him, right?
Not yet. They've been wanting to. All his films were boob-centric.
Yeah, like big boobs.
Vixen, Super Vixen. His most legitimate movie, 20th Century Fox actually gave him a shot for a second at a movie, and he did it, and it was called Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. It was a sequel to Valley of the Dolls, or totally different, and it is amazing. If you get a chance to see Beyond the Valley of the Dolls, there's a scene in Austin Powers where Austin Powers comes into a party and he goes, "This is my happening," and it freaks me out. Well, that's literally lifted from Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Nice. Yeah, excellent. The film became a cult classic, 74% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Faster Pussycat's amazing. Tarantino's wanted to remake it for years. I hope he doesn't.
Well, I don't think he will, because, he has a hard stop as far as this next film's supposedly going to be his last film. And I don't think he'll do that with this remake. The box office, while not a box office hit, the influence grew over time, making it a staple in grindhouse cinema. And Russ Meyer's work in exploitation cinema, particularly in this film, has been influential in both underground and mainstream media, like Jason was mentioning. So that's just 2 out of the top 5. For the sake of time, we're continuing the conversation here on the podcast broadcast. We got more coming up right around the corner after these words. So you can join us, youtube.com/beefvegan, or keep it right here, because we got music on the way from Sublime on Rock 102.1 KFMA. Clear. All right, let's continue. So that's fast. So far, you're just like, yes, right? So this list is somewhat like tracking out a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, this one. Now, I've heard about this film because of its legendary graphic nature, and I believe there was a remake on this. I Spit on Your Grave, 1978, by Mayor Zacchi.
It's a good film. It's a good film. I think I even like the remakes better.
For this one?
Yeah, they did several. I think
the latest remake came out just like 5-6 years ago, and that like pretty recent, within the last decade, right?
All I know is, like, I think part 3, it was like the girl was like in a self-help group for like violence, and like all the people in her group, like one girl's like, my husband beats me, and she was just killing and murdering all the people that were victims in her self-help group, and I thought that was a unique angle on a movie. Could have been not called I Spit on Your Grave 3, but yeah, the remakes of I Spit on Your Grave, and the original's great too.
Yeah, so this original one came out in 1978. It's a controversial rape revenge film. polarized audience and critics alike. It actually just sits at 53% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
I got a funny thing. You want to pull up the poster real quick, or can you?
On Spit of Your Grave?
Yeah, the original. I'll show you something
Yeah.
funny that you'll appreciate.
Okay. I Spit on Your Grave.
Posted. It's sort of trivia. It's factual, though. It's legitimate.
1978. Okay. Images. The one with the butt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, come on. I need to make this bigger. Let's see. Okay. I think this is the biggest I can get with this poster. All right. Tell me about it.
Well, that's a famous Hollywood actress, and it's been confirmed, and it's Demi Moore.
Is that Demi Moore?
Yep.
Demi Moore's butt, 1978?
You got it.
Wow. How old was she there? She must have been like 1920 at that point.
She was very young. She hadn't even done, Parasite or God knows what.
Wow. Yeah, I recognize it. I'm just kidding.
But it's a fun little exploitation, little trivia thing.
Right. Nice. Some people are out there throwing out Devil's Rejects. Or are you talking about your favorites? And I'll see if it makes the top 5 of my other list that I have to share with you. But moving forward, that was a Spit on Your Grave, number 3, and the top 5 Grindhouse films of all time, according to, again, a combination of critical reviews and box office gross. Coming in at number 2. Another classic, a staple that started off, a genre, a franchise that is still relevant and thriving today. It's the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, 1974. Of course, terrifying film based off a real, true story. That's the urban legend, right? There was a real Leatherface. And obviously, it's been reimagined a million times. The original, directed by Tobe Hooper. Often cited as one of the most terrifying films ever made, and has an 89% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
That should be higher.
Yeah, you think what?
100%.
100%, nailed it. So, it just it checked all the boxes and then some.
Oh heck yeah! I mean, it doesn't have a lot of nudity in it.
Right, yeah.
And it actually doesn't have a lot of. You never really. There's not a lot of gore in it, believe it or not. You see the girl being hung on the hook, but you don't see it go through. With that said, you just feel the disgust in every frame. They shot it 100-degree Texas, no air conditioning.
Yeah,
the makeup's great, the art direction's great, all the chairs that are made of human bone and stuff. It's a masterpiece. It's also celebrating its 50th anniversary.
Yeah,
it's crazy
this year. Yeah, because it came out in 1974.
And I'm actually I'm putting together a film festival in Tucson next year called the Very Scary Film Festival, and I'm hoping, put the word out there, to do a screening. I'd love to do a screening of Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the Slaughterhouse.
That would be beautiful.
With the stars. I'm already talking to Grandpa and some other people, but
that would be amazing.
I love that. I love that movie. I'm going to be in LA next week, and they have a Texas Chainsaw Massacre maze at Halloween Horror Nights. I'm going to be like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be amazing. And if you do somehow put that together, let me know immediately. This was produced on a budget of less than $300,000. So technically, it was kind of a bigger budget of a film, especially in 1974, right? Grossed over $30 million at the box office. So initially, right off the bat, the buzz was there. People, were blown away by the innovation of this film. And, of course, they had the marketing strategy of based off of a true story. That always gets people's attention and then, captures their imagination and scares the shit out of them, right? The impact of this film, it was raw, gritty style, shocking content, made it a grindhouse favorite and a cornerstone of the slasher genre. Sorry. I got to learn how to read a little bit. So with these, this is the 4 out of the 5, right? And we're going backwards from 5 to 1. Obviously, you're an expert of the genre. And that is obvious to everybody who's listening along. So do you think you can guess the number 1 grindhouse classic that is on this list based off, again, you're talking about critical reviews and box office, legacy, things like that?
I thought Texas was going to be number 1, actually. So.
I was super close, but when you hear what number 1 is, then you could understand the argument for it being number 1 as opposed to Texas.
Yeah, in terms of independent cinema.
Mm-hmm. And Grindhouse.
It surprised me.
Night of the Living Dead.
that makes sense.
Right.
That
so,
makes sense.
so like I said, like when you hear what number one is going to be, you're like, hey, because what could be higher than Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Well,
I just, you know, had in my head more Grindhouse, where Night of the Living Dead is more independent. They're all independent,
right?
And obviously, Night of the Living Dead, nothing gets more independent than that. Although there's a movie in the same era that's equally as independent that doesn't get as much love, called Carnival of Souls, which is the same kind of thing. It's just
that came out after though, because this one was so revolutionary for many reasons. George A. Romero, of course, came out in 1968. It was a pioneering film in the zombie genre, which is inescapable today, right? There's so many like zombie properties out there. Night of the Living Dead is widely regarded as a classic, and it holds a 96% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's a masterpiece. It's great, and it paved the way and created the modern day, zombie.
Yeah, and even made more money with a smaller budget than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It was made on a budget of around $114,000.
I don't know how much money Romero made though, because weirdly enough, he didn't copyright the movie, and people started putting it out.
Right.
I think that's why he ultimately made Dawn of the Dead, to sort of reclaim.
Get some money, and to have something based off his legacy. Yeah, that's crazy too. And another thing, because 1968 too, and it was still, you're talking, what? I mean, I guess around 68 years of the movie industry, but it was still in its infancy in a way, or adolescence to say the least. And so a lot of these mistakes that filmmakers were making over time, they just learned. So luckily, now that it's been over 100 years, and all these people have been screwed over time and time again, those stories are out, and hopefully people aren't continuing to be victimized, but there will always be new ways to rip people off. Rocco and 2.1 KFMA, welcome back to Beef Vegan Presents. We're hanging out here with filmmaker Jason Rutherford, who is going to be screening his feature SINEMA at the Tucson Comic Con at 11 a.m. on Sunday. We just broke down the top 5 Grindhouse films and of all time based off of reviews and box office. And here's a quick recap of those for those of you who weren't watching along on the podcast broadcast. Number 5 was The House on the Left, which was directed by Wes Craven, released in 1972. Then number 4, Faster Pussycat Kill Kill, released in 1965, directed by the legendary breast-obsessed Russ Meyer. Then number 3, a movie that's been remade several times over, the original I Spit on Your Grave, released in 1978. And then number 2, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which everyone knows is a staple of every Halloween. And number 1 was Night of the Living Dead by George A. Romero, released in 1968, credited for kicking off the zombie genre, which is inescapable today. I mean, hell, I was just watching... this morning I was getting ready, I saw on Unilad on Instagram, basically a guy who found a spider that was infected with the Last of Us fungus, which is a real thing, right? Which makes that show even more terrifying. And it's showing the picture of the spider basically dead with that fungus growing out of it. And you're like, oh no, it's happening. It's happening. We only have a couple seconds here on the FM side. I got to play some commercials. Be back with your beef tip right after this. But please join us on the podcast broadcast, because there we're going to go over some of your best responses on if you could watch one movie for the rest of your life, what movie would that be? I asked that question on Facebook, and I have another top 5 list. And the top 5 list for that is the top 5 horror films of all time. And we're talking with Jason Rutherford, who is the writer-director of SINEMA, which is going to be featured at the Tucson Comic Con this Sunday at 11 a.m. Don't forget to pick up your tickets for Tucson Comic Con as quickly as you can, because it's going down this weekend. More right after these words on Rock 102.1 KFMA. All right, so if I asked you, because I got top 5 answers on the board, right? What do you believe is considered the best horror film of all time? Now, but it's based off of these 2 things. Okay. It is critical review and box office. So, obviously, as a purist, you
have this list?
I do have this list. Yeah. So, as a purist, as a super fan, I'm sure you can give me many hipster answers, right? Of movies that deserve that slot, but are still kind of underground. Yeah. So you got to think mainstream on this.
This is of all time.
Of all time, right? So if you're thinking, all right, so what is the number 1 answer of the top 5 horror films of all time based off a combination of critical reviews and box office revenue?
So you want right now?
Yeah, yeah.
All 5?
No, well, I mean, let's see if you can guess the number one answer. Or, I mean, yeah, you throw out an answer.
Exorcist.
You say Exorcist. Survey says number 2 answer on the board. 1973, considered one of the scariest films ever. 84% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Won 2 Oscars.
Let me throw another one. Psycho.
Psycho. Survey says number 1 answer on the board. Of course, Alfred Hitchcock. Psycho's often hailed as like one of the greatest films ever made. Just films ever made.
Yeah.
It was a masterclass in suspense and horror. Has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes. It grossed $50 million worldwide. You got to think about this. It came out in 1960, right? So that's like Avengers level box office. On a budget of $800,000, which, again, 1960, a shit ton of money, but that was Hitchcock at his peak. So the studio was like, what do you want? You got it. Yeah, and a massive success at the time and still pretty much to this day. Right, so yeah, you nailed the top 2. So to like see if you can guess the other 3.
I don't know if would Alien be under there? I know it's sci-fi, but it's also horror.
You know what? I mean, you're kind of in the realm. Alien is not on this list, but there is something on this list that I feel like kind of threads that line. It's not necessarily sci-fi, but it's not necessarily horror at the same time. And it's a legendary film all the same. I did watch Alien Romulus, and I think it was a miss for the most part.
Yeah.
But they retread a little too much, right? They tried to pay homage.
Oh, I hated it when he said, "Get away from her, you bit." I was like, "Are you serious?"
Yes,
dude?
yes. And I was with my buddy Rico, who's on the show with me, and he's a huge Alien fan too. And he audibly groaned at that line as well, just like, "Give me a fucking break." Come on.
I don't know. I'm blanking on the other ones because there's just so many.
One came out recently.
I'm filled with hipster answers.
Mhm.
Evil Dead Rise. I don't know. You just said recently.
Yeah, recently. It
Oh,
number
that's
5.
right.
Yeah,
That's right.
And I think it's on here both. I mean, it did get 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it also grossed over $700 million.
I know it was It Part 1 because it's also. I was looking at the top 10 rated R top grossing because Deadpool, Wolverine's number 1 now, and there's a bunch of Avatars in there and Oppenheimer. And
Yeah. No, it Part 1, well received, obviously. Then coming in number 4, you're gonna kick yourself for this one. Halloween.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, 1978, John Carpenter. It was made on a budget of $300,000. Made $70 million worldwide. I think released around Halloween initially. Just, it was a marketing masterclass, if anything.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the film and the backstory of it being like a William Shatner mask, all that stuff is wildly fascinating.
Yeah.
But you could tell it was also kind of like a thing where they had a half an idea and they went for it, and it just kind of became something else.
A lot of the success of the movie is the photography by Dean Cundy as well. Once again, my buddy there, in the Grindhouse documentary, he did 8 Grindhouse. He did about 15 movies before getting to Halloween.
Right.
And so by then he was a master, but that's because of his training, and all that Steadicam stuff that's now like people love It Follows. I can't stand It Follows, but it's so great. And all the shots that are like Halloween. Yeah, but there's nothing else. They don't have the killer and everything else, the music. And
yeah.
So yeah, it's a masterpiece.
And you think it was kind of like a perfect storm of everything kind of put together?
Oh yeah, I mean yeah.
And the cinematographer, like the man you just mentioned and stuff, he put his 10,000 hours in as far as before he even shot that. So he was an expert in his field.
He was.
And you think he was basically the unsung hero and MVP of that then?
Everybody know. I mean, he is. Everybody loves Dean Cundy, and people know he's awesome.
Okay.
And he went on to do everything else from Romancing the Stone to,
right,
Roger Rabbit. So yeah, he's awesome.
Nice. Well, Halloween, 96% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I was actually surprised by that.
That's good.
And in this one, the one that you didn't guess, but also iconic. With the highest rating, I believe, on Rotten Tomatoes out of these 5 films, Jaws, Steven Spielberg. So again, not necessarily a horror film. I mean, it's
That's
scary.
what you were talking about.
Yeah. But wouldn't necessarily fit that box, so to speak.
Yeah.
But they say it redefined the horror game, but also invented the concept of the summer blockbuster. Grossed about $470 million worldwide, becoming the highest grossing film of its time.
Love it.
Yeah. The top 5 there. So it was good to kind of go through that list. Now, if you were to be able we only got about 30 seconds before we get back on the air. Got to wrap things up quickly.
Sure.
Name a movie that you would watch. If you could only watch one movie for the rest of your life, what was that movie going to be?
Oh God, it might be a musical called Sunday Side Up from like 1928 because it's such a weird anomaly of a movie. I don't even have time to tell you why, but it's awesome.
That is not what I was expecting, Jason. After everything that we talked about here,
I know.
I love it, dude. All right, we gotta wrap things up. Unfortunately, we have no time. Rock 102.1 KFMA. Unfortunately, literally, we have 0 time left on the podcast broadcast. I just want to thank Jason Rutherford, director of the movie SINEMA, that you could check out at the TCC. Thank you, Jason. Where can people find your work?
I was just gonna say, we're our trailers and our Masters of the Grindcast, which is our podcast, is on YouTube right now, and all our trailers for in SINEMA and Masters of the Grind are up there. Room 66 is coming out soon. We're always looking for investors for our next film, Helican, and we're putting together our first annual Very Scary Film Festival in Tucson, and we're in talks about where the theater's going to be, and cinema screening at 11 a.m. in Panels Room 101 this Sunday. It's September 1st at Comic Con. I'll have some Blu-rays selling, and be glad to answer your questions. I can't talk either.
That happens.
It's going to be a fun time, and I appreciate you having me, buddy. It was a blast.
I had a great time. Talking film with you. I'm very excited about this. I'll definitely see you out there Sunday and be able to check out the movie with you. So I look forward to that as well. And it was again pleasure meeting you. First time, not going to be the last time. So good luck on, that Texas Chainsaw Massacre project that you're going to be working on, and any developments you have as far as Film Fest or anything in town. Make sure you let me know.
Awesome,
all right.
buddy.
Thank you guys for watching as well. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If it's first time watching the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe. But we are out of here. Later.